Hello and welcome to another edition of Pirate Parents Live. My name is Carter Fenwick. I'm the Associate Director of Parent and Family Programs. With me today is Summer Edwards, the Director of University Scholarships here at ECU. And we are going to be talking about scholarships since we are already into scholarship season. So we're going to be covering some frequently asked questions, kind of what the scholarship process looks like, and then also some tips that you can share all of this information with your students as they apply for scholarships this season. So whether you're watching live or watching the recorded version of this video, please put your questions into the chat. We will have colleagues monitoring it. Later, we will also be monitoring it so we can answer your questions there. But we can go ahead and get things kicked off with, I would say is a basic question, but I think it's important for us to cover right off the bat. But what is the difference between scholarships and financial aid?
So financial aid encompasses a little bit of everything. So grants, student loans, work opportunities, and scholarship kind of falls under the umbrella. But a scholarship is something that a student does not have to repay.
Love it.
So it's the gift aid. It's, something that's awarded based off of merit, but it's not requiring repayment like a student loan would.
That's what we love, and that's exactly why we're adding this extra helpful information and tips for your students and for you, so that way you can have your student apply for, it's not free money, but it's kind of free money, because like you said, it's based off of merit and based off of, grades and extracurriculars and things like that. But we will cover some more of that information as we go through. Next question to talk about is just what does the scholarship process here at ECU just look like as like an overview?
So ECU, we have a different process than other institutions. You must be accepted to admission at ECU before you get the credentials, your Pirate ID that you need to sign into the scholarship portal. We have a single online portal for students to submit their general scholarship application. And from there, the system automatically matches students to opportunities that they're qualified for, and will also give them items for further review that they can go in and answer some supplemental questions and actively apply for opportunities. But our portal houses everything from incoming freshmen all the way through like medical and dental school opportunities. The process is competitive. And everyone can apply. There's not a limit to who can apply. So it's every single year you get in that portal and you submit that general application so you can be considered for campus-based scholarships.
Awesome. And I'm glad you mentioned the part about, when you're applying to ECU and you get accepted, you can start applying for scholarships, because that rolls right into my next question is, when can students begin applying for scholarships? How long do they have to apply, both for our current students, sophomore, junior, seniors, but also for those incoming, soon-to-be freshman students?
Absolutely. So our freshman opportunities have been open since August, and our opportunities for our existing students, they opened on November 1st. So students will have until January 15th for most opportunities to get that general application and all of their supplemental items in order to be considered. The exceptions to that January 15th rule are going to be the nursing, medical, and dental programs, because of how their admission process falls. But for pretty much everything else, it's going to be January 15th.
I know that our office has a scholarship that we give out to 3 students. So those deadlines of November 1 it opens, and January 15th is when it closes, because January 15th is when we really start doing that process of reviewing those applications. So those deadlines are burned into my brain and into my calendar. Next question for you, Summer. You also have kind of touched on this a little bit, but if you can elaborate more, who is eligible for scholarships, and really what do ECU scholarships require?
So anyone is eligible to apply as long as you're an accepted ECU student. The general scholarship application is going to be like a big overview of like resume items. So volunteer service, any awards, and if you're involved in leadership, so being in organizations on campus or in the community, serving in a leadership capacity. Also gets you a chance to brag on yourself a little bit, talk about all the wonderful things that you're doing. The portal will import information like your major, your GPA, where you're from, and that automatically is imported into our portal, which will match you to opportunities that you qualify for. The portal has two different types of opportunities. One of those is an auto match, where the system can say, okay, I need a student that is a biology major with a minimum 3.0 undergraduate GPA, and they have to be from Pitt County. So we can read all of that about a student from them submitting their general application. So instead of a student having to read through all of these opportunities, if we can automatically match a student to that opportunity, we will. And it takes a little bit of the work off the student from having to read through hundreds of different scholarship opportunities. The other opportunities are they are applied to. So we will match a student to the opportunity because they meet some of the qualifications, but there may be something that a student has to self-identify. So does your parent work for a certain company? Are you a relative of a veteran from Pamlico County? Those are items that we don't know about a student. So the student has to go in and submit either a supplemental answer to a question, write an essay, submit a letter of recommendation to actively apply for those opportunities.
So you mentioned how, the system will auto match based on that initial kind of form that students have to fill out, which is extremely helpful just to kind of fill out that one form and then answer those essays to the different scholarships that have them. So that does expedite the process a lot. But once students have filled out their scholarship application, submitted it before the deadline, how do students find out if they were selected for a scholarship and maybe when that timeline is?
So during the month of end of January and February, the scholarship committees across campus, they're reviewing applications and making their scholarship selections. So we will start notifying students for the upcoming academic year if they were selected for a scholarship in late February or early March. Students will receive an email to their ECU student email account. It will not go to a Gmail or a pre-admission email, so it's important that students are always checking their ECU student email. It'll send them an email that says, congratulations, you've been selected for this scholarship. Click the link to go into the portal and view the actual offer letter. And in the portal, it'll also prompt the students to say, okay, well, this letter requires a letter of appreciation for your donor, and it gives them the guidelines of how to submit that, and you upload it straight into the portal, and then the committees across campus will send those to the donors on the student's behalf. So checking that email in February and March is going to be really crucial in finding out if you've been awarded a scholarship for the upcoming academic year.
Mm-hmm. And I'm glad you mentioned that, especially for those students who are maybe seniors in high school or transfer students who are applying to ECU, of check your ECU email, not your Gmail or something else that you've been using prior to being admitted to ECU. So I'm glad you made that very clear.
Yes. Always check that email.
Yes. Oh my gosh. That's basically all we ever do as employees at ECU. Just, hey, make sure your student is checking their ECU email.
ECU email. Absolutely.
Okay, great. So far we've pretty much covered the ECU specific scholarships. There are, of course, scholarships outside of ECU that students can apply for. So can you give or provide any help or guidance or resources where students can find those scholarships that are offered by other organizations or companies outside of ECU that they can apply for?
So there are many different search engines that you can look online, and Google's going to be your best friend. You can go in there and say, okay, I need chemistry student scholarships, and it should pull up different organizations that may offer scholarships for chemistry students or students that are in geography or something like that. You can type it in and it'll pull up some results. You have to be wary of the opportunities that you're finding, online, just make sure that they're from a reputable organization, so it's not like you're not falling into like a scholarship scam. But some good resources are like national database would be fastweb.com and scholarships.com. Those are good. Like you can kind of search keywords, create an account, and they're just a really good national source of scholarships. For students that are from North Carolina, the College Foundation of North Carolina, CFNC, they have a good database on their website that you can search for. And also the North Carolina Community Foundation, they have an online search for folks that are from North Carolina. You can search by county and it tells you some opportunities that are available for a student from Pitt County or Wake County or wherever it may be. But the biggest thing is you never want to pay to submit a scholarship application.
Red flag.
They should be, scholarship applications should be free. So if they're ever asking for you to pay for something, I would probably close that application out and just move on to the next one.
That's a good point. So if a student receives a scholarship outside of an ECU scholarship, well, one, and it might be a silly question, but is it accepted at ECU? And two, how can they apply that scholarship to their ECU account?
So typically external scholarships are generated in one of two ways. One, the external organization will make the check out directly to the student, and if the student is on the check is written to them, they are responsible for managing the money. So if it's for books or whatever, then the student is responsible for using that scholarship to purchase their books. If the scholarship is made out to ECU, it needs to be sent either to financial aid office, cashier's office, or you can send it to the scholarship office, and we will get it added to the student's account. It will automatically be applied towards whatever outstanding bill is with the university. And if the bill with the university is covered, then any remaining amount will be refunded to the student to use for other educational related expenses. So books, if you're living off campus, could be used towards rent, groceries, anything like that to help with those education related needs.
Great. Good to know. Because sometimes those, a parent at home, if the student is maybe, here at school and a parent at home gets the check made out to the student or made out to the university, sometimes it's like, I'm glad my student got this scholarship. How the heck do I apply to my student's bill this money? So I think that's great, important information to discuss. So thank you. So what are some helpful just like tips for students who want to be successful on their applications? What are some things that they need to be remembering, whether it's for an ECU scholarship or an external scholarship? What are the things they should be remembering as they fill out the application?
So probably number one tip is to make sure that you are reading all of the instructions very carefully. This is not something that you want to sit down and try to crank out an application in 5 minutes. You want to take down, put the time into it, have someone read behind you, check for any grammatical errors, typos, misspellings, anything like that. And it's also a really good chance to brag on yourself. So the more that you can put out there on a scholarship application, the more that the reviewing committees have to evaluate. I try to tell students, never leave anything blank. If you put an A, then they have nothing to, there's no way to evaluate your answer to that question. So put something, take the time to think on it, be as detailed as possible. For like ECU, we talk about, service is a big component. So if you volunteer with multiple organizations, then list all of those organizations. Or if you're involved in multiple student organizations on campus, tell us what organizations you're involved in, what your role is, how long you've been involved. Anything and everything that you can brag on yourself and put out there detail-wise is going to be beneficial. And if for some of those scholarships that require a letter of recommendation, make sure that you are using proper etiquette when you're requesting someone to serve as a reference for a scholarship application. Be mindful of deadlines. If you know that your reference has to have the letter in by November 30th, do not wait until November 29th to ask the reference, because they probably don't have the time to drop everything right then to knock out a letter of recommendation. On our scholarship.ecu.edu website, there is some helpful information, and there is information on how to ask someone to be your reference, and some guidance on how to do that. And make sure that you're sending in the most recent copy of your resume, or telling them exactly what the scholarship is, versus just saying, hey, I need you to be a reference. At least provide them with the information so they know what aspect of your personality or skills that they've witnessed that they need to be speaking to. So if you're looking for something that's service-based or academics, they need to know what they're being requested to do. And another thing, I've touched on it once, but I'll say it again, take your time. This is an investment of your time into your educational future. So if you take 30, 45 minutes to do an application, and in the end it yields a $500 scholarship, $1,000, $2,000 scholarship, that's a great return on your investment of time. 30 minutes for $500, that's almost $1,000 an hour, and there's not many jobs out there that will pay $1,000 an hour. So take the time, sit down, think through everything, and get it done ahead of time so you've got time to go back and revise and edit. And always look at applications on the computer screen, because we live in a cell phone world where everybody is looking at their phone all the time. Sometimes when you are looking at different websites or applications on your cell phone, you may miss an important link, or the screen may not show you everything at one time. So it's always good to get in the habit of, sure, search for them on your phone, but when you sit down and actually are typing out these applications, try to pull it up on a desktop or a laptop so you can make sure you're getting the full screen, the full picture. Same thing with emails, because sometimes when you're looking at an email on a phone, you miss a link and you may miss a deadline or something like that. So that's another thing, to pull it up on the phone and then take it to the computer, and that way you can make sure that you're getting the full picture. And really, for kind of filling out scholarships, look everywhere. Look in your community. Look at your parents' place of employment. Look with, like if you bank with a credit union, some credit unions have scholarships. So look far and wide, because once you start doing these little applications, a $200 scholarship stacked with a $500 or $100 scholarship, adding another one, you can stack things together, and it makes a big impact when it comes to paying that tuition.
Yes, it does. Those are fantastic tips, and I would say those are really great tips, for your student to get in the habit of using, especially when they kind of start applying for jobs later. Your student may be an incoming freshman at ECU, may be a rising junior, but those tips of taking your time, reading everything properly, like making sure you give yourself, time for asking for references and things like that, are great resources when it comes to applying for jobs later. So go ahead and start flexing those muscles now, so that way they are good and strong later when you're applying for jobs and things like that. So those are great, great tips. And my last question for you is one that you did kind of touch on, but I wonder if you can expand on, is there are scholarship scams. There are bad people in this world that want to take advantage of people who are in need, especially when it comes to education, and need for scholarships and things like that. So can you give any additional tips on how to beware of those scholarship scams?
So the biggest one, like I said before, is never pay to submit a scholarship application. And be mindful of what these applications are asking from you. If they are saying, okay, we need your social security number, your date of birth, your address, your full name, that would kind of give you a chance to be like, okay, let me pause, take a look at that, because that's everything someone needs to steal an identity. So be mindful of what they're asking for, and if you're not familiar with the organization that is offering the scholarship, do your research. Go in and search them on the internet and say, okay, If this, search the organization, make sure they have like an actual website or there's a physical location, there's a number you can call, like that you're not getting sucked into one of those, just a scam application that they're using it to mine personal data that they turn around and use it to harm those that are submitting the application. Because most of the time when something seems to be too good, it usually is. So you have to trust yourself, use your best judgment. And if you run into issues where you're filling out an application and it gives you a chance, a reason to kind of pause and look at it, if the student's filling it out, have the student check with the parent. If you want to send our office an email and say, hey, I was looking at this scholarship, can you take a look and just see if you think this is a legitimate organization, or if I should, just kind of stop the application process. We will be glad to do that. So if you'll just send it to scholarships@ecu.edu, send us the link to the website or the application. We'll be glad to help you kind of search out and see if it is a reputable organization, or if it's a valid scholarship application that you should continue to apply for.
That's great. So we have covered a lot of information in this session, in this video. Is there anything that you want to, tie a neat bow on of, like, we've said it, but I want to say it again because I think it's really important as we close?
The biggest thing is do a scholarship application, search far and wide. Don't think that you don't qualify for scholarships, because there are so many different criteria. Some are very broad, some are very specific, but ECU scholarships look at a combination of academic merit, financial need, service. So there's a little bit out there for everybody. ECU also offers study abroad scholarships. So if that's something down the pipeline that you're planning to study abroad, there's different opportunities for that as well. So it's not just your, coming in the door. There's opportunities for departmental scholarships, things that are for any student in any major, like Alumni Association or Student Affairs. There's opportunities throughout every year while you're here at ECU, and we want you to take advantage of that. Go ahead, complete the application. It is a competitive process, but if you don't apply, you can't be reviewed. But just be mindful of deadlines as you're applying, because once the deadlines pass, unfortunately, we jump right into the review season and decisions are made.
Thank you, Summer, for joining us and sharing so much helpful information, and thank you for tuning in. This video will remain on our Facebook page, as well as it will be added to our website, parents.ecu.edu, and it will be shared on the Parent and Family Portal. All of this information and much, much more that we have talked about is available on the scholarships.ecu.edu website. So I reference that website a lot when assisting our parents and families, and Summer's team does a really great job of keeping that updated with a lot of really great resources. So check it out. And then, like Summer said, if you have any questions, you can visit her office. Her email is scholarships@ec.edu, and the phone number is 252-328-5816. I'm looking just to make sure. Okay, great. But like I said, thank you so much for tuning in, and we hope your students apply for scholarships.